Hey guys, welcome to the fifth weekly podcast for HashMP EU4. HashMP is a competitive Europa Universalis 4 group that plays with our own balance mod, with games running on Sunday and Wednesday. This podcast will be primarily focused on our most recent Sunday game, which is on its third session. Well, just wrapped up its third session this past Sunday. And with me I have a player from that game, Seb, who's playing on Bengal and is actually having a very successful game, as well as one of our balance team members, Abba, who's appearing on this podcast on short notice, and I really appreciate him filling in. So with that, let's get you guys for both coming onto the podcast, especially Abba on sort of shorter notice. But just starting with the Sunday game, since this is what we're going to be mostly talking about on this podcast. You're playing Bengal, right, Seb?
Yes.
And this is the Bengal that's post floppy nerf, right?
Oh yes, the ideas are really scuffed now.
But it seems like you're doing pretty well. I mean, like, you control all of northern and sort of eastern India here, so do you think that's despite the ideas, or is that just, like, because of the positioning of Bengal geographically, or was that, like, creative diplo? Like, what would you attribute the success of your country so far in the game to?
Mostly to the positioning of Bengal. I think you have a lot of influence in India. Like, you can decide which sides win, basically. Yeah, you can either support Bamanas or support Delhi or support Mewar, and there's not many people that actually wants you dead, because all your land is in a different culture group and all your land's in an awkward region that's hard to invade. And nobody gets permaclaims on you until like way later, so there's not much incentive to fight you.
For sure, for sure. So you think the idea changes? I mean, obviously it's not like the most enjoyable thing to play with a country that doesn't have the best ideas. Like, everyone wants a really strong idea set. But do you think they're maybe not as mandatory for a nation like this kind of position because of that sort of kingmaker position that Bengal has in India?
Yeah, well, their ideas are still fine. It's just that they're not great anymore. It's like they dropped a tier. But
Right.
if you
I mean, you
complete
still have
like
the infantry combat. You have
yeah,
the artillery damage
back
from back row. You have the army tradition. You have the
dev
manpower.
cost,
Yeah, I mean, it's still a really strong idea set. It's
you have
just not
tax, production.
best in
It's
the world.
fine. It's just that you lost a lot and you
Right.
feel it. It's not the end of the world.
That's fair. That's fair. And what would you say your role was in sort of the death of the Ottomans here? Because if we tag into the Ottomans, they're definitely not in the best of shape. I think they're going on their third or fourth bankruptcy, and they lost like 500% worth of land in maybe like 10 years. So walk us through sort of what happened there at the end of the session with the Ottomans.
Well, we'll go back to start of session. Ottomans was in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. It was basically threatening us for states in Gujarat and Delhi. And we basically made an agreement that we'll just kick out the Turks any chance we get. So we instantly tried to snake to cut them off. And after we cut them off, we just waited for a good opportunity. And he decided to attack Russia in a weird war goal in Kazakhstan, which made him lose a lot of men and made him lose a lot of resources. And then Zami messaged me, he's like, I just wiped one of his stacks, so I was like, okay, it's time to go.
You just got that go ahead. You're just like, okay, it's
Yeah.
time now.
Yeah, and then he didn't even fight us, he was focused on killing Russia, so we basically sieged like half of Persia, and then he unconditional to us, and we got 100%.
Fair enough.
But then what was funny with game mechanics is that he's still technically in an offensive war with Russia. So I told Bamanis to ally Russia and join the war again. Since all the land he took was not stated, we could core it even while at war with the Turks. So he joined the war again, and the Turks gave him 100% instantly. But
Because
then
he's
it
just
gets
sort of like,
kind of...
I need to kill Russia, I need to kill Russia, sort of tunnel visioning.
Yeah, but then he kind of made a stupid move and truce broke on Bamanet to keep him locked at the whole 100 overextension. and that backfired really quickly. And then he truce broke again after losing that.
And at that
war,
point, once you're on the third truce break, it's or the second truce break in that case, it's kind of over at that point, right?
Yeah, he has nothing left. He's like at that point, the AIs around him started declaring war on him. Like Ijaz occupies all of Egypt, Khorasan is sieging all of Persia. It's really scary.
Wait, so this was the second truce break? That
Yeah. So
where he took Iraq and everything?
yeah, so basically
The first
he
war
truce
we
broke
took.
first, and then he gave 100% when Bakhmanis like rejoined on Russia's side, and then he truce broke Bakhmanis immediately after giving 100% up in like a separate war, so that Bakhmanis was co-belligerent or something. But then he lost that 100% too, so it was just sort of
and then Bakhmanis gave me 100% so we can get a straight line to Persia in case Russia wanted to get in there, but I don't think he does.
right. You kind of just like snaked him right the fuck off there. Took
Yeah,
the
well,
stand.
Zlamy told me he doesn't care about Persia, but Bakhmanis was scared, so I told him, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, well, that's fair. I do want to talk a little bit about Europe because the Ottoman cluster fuck going on here is not the only interesting thing that happened this session. I know we had actually a couple sea lions happen during the session. Abba, I know you were sort of like the joke was that you were Lewis's Diplo advisor.
I was trying to tell him what he was doing wrong.
So what was he doing wrong with his...
Okay, so you know there's a hotkey, right, to get on your ships?
Yeah.
He didn't know about that. And so he kept manually walking. He put his ships out into port, right, into the sea tile, and then he'd manually walk into it. And then he did this twice. He'd move the ships out into coast of Holland and try to walk into Norfolk, which is in the next sea tile in Dogger Bank.
Yeah.
So he did that twice. I'm like telling him, like, Lewis, you can't walk across the sea tile.
And then
So then
he still landed.
He finally, no, yeah, he actually did land. He landed with 27K, I think.
Yeah.
Like 3 cannons or something. But then it was already like too late. Like his trips were so much better. He was a full idea set on what's it called, on Alakan, because he had taken.
I mean, he's still a full idea set. It looks like Alakan only has 21
Alakan wasn't able to catch up.
Yeah, Alcan opened up Maritime, so his army's not about to get...
No, he didn't open Maritime. He opened
He did.
Explo Quality, Innovation.
No, I
his
meant
fourth
as
idea.
net,
His fourth idea.
Yeah. And he doesn't have any ideas in Maritime yet, so he doesn't get that infantry combat policy.
Alakan could have stopped it. He had five heavies sitting right next to Denmark, and then he kept moving them from like Denmark to Straits of Dover, because Lewis was building ships in both sea towers, coast of Holland and Straits of Dover. So he could have just stopped it if you just parked some ship. He didn't even have to micro troops or anything. Just literally leave like 5 heavies.
But it kind of came back to bite him because he wasn't able to close out that war quickly enough, and then kind of got
With
behind.
Portugal and that?
Well, I mean, he was occupying the British Isles, right? And then
Oh yeah.
Swiss and Prussia and Denmark decided that since he was so heavily invested in the Sea Lion...
Oh, this was the third one. Yeah, that was the third one that he did
He
that.
Sea Lion 3 times?
No, he Sea Lion 2, but it was 3 different wars, remember?
Yeah, because
first-
he fucked up the peace deal and gave Holland instead of
Yeah,
taking
I
one.
think he gave
He did it.
Holland, and it was
Yeah,
like
he
the
gave
classic,
like 70%
the
to
classic hash clip where he gives Ceylon to...
Yeah, that's pretty much what he did, and he's like, he just truce broke instantly, and that's where he just sat on him. And then the second war is when he sea lines, and then the third war is when he sea lines second time, but everyone comes in to jump on him when Ethiopia and everyone tries to come in to save GB.
For sure.
He didn't actually take anything though. He just took money and war reps, I think.
I know during the session there was a lot of people pressing for Denmark to make a play towards England, but instead he chose to make a play towards Hesse. What do you think about that kind of diplomatic maneuvering there?
I mean,
You mean Denmark?
Yeah, Denmark. Did I say something else?
No, we just...
I guess it's safe. I don't know, like there's just... What is
Joker,
he already got...
basically, yeah, you had the easy war in S, or you had the hard war in England, and you took
Yeah.
the easy.
Yeah, it seems a lot safer because he's got that limited front with Hesse, and he was in the war with a couple other HRE states, so there wasn't like that risk of a blowback. Versus if you go in on Britain, you kind of have to go in on Britain hard, or they come back.
Yeah,
and
keep going.
punch
Keep
you.
going.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that mentality kind of prevails a lot, where it's easier to take the easy war out than sort of like punch into the harder target. Like I know Austria, for example, in this game went for the Venice node instead of like continuing to punch into Russia, for example. It seems like they sort of worked out an arrangement with border wise, but
Yeah.
like they sort of let Poland die and just kind of said, okay, I'll take this, you take this, instead of trying to actually like contest each other, and then they just went for their own easier wars. I mean, on Russia, Ottomans isn't exactly what you'd call an easy war, but it's certainly easier than fighting Ottomans and Austria-Hungary, right? So
I mean, they're fighting together against the Turks right now, so kind of have a lot of common interest.
Right, and so it seems like it's a lot easier sometimes to punch that easy war with like stronger friends than go for the maybe the more rewarding play. Because if Denmark goes for that sea lion and they are able to take the North Sea trade, go for the colonial game, because I mean Canada it is a Danish colony, but
Yeah, it's nearly like fully colonized, pretty much like
right.
70.
But there's that level of risk that makes it maybe less of a rewarding play, because it can come back to bite you pretty hard. So I don't know. It's an attitude that sort of prevails. Another interesting thing is we saw sort of a different state of affairs in Western Europe, where we have actually Songhai for the first time. I think this is the first and maybe the last time we'll ever see this, but Songhai controls the Genoa node. What do you guys think about that state of affairs?
It's really, I love it. It's hilarious.
It's actually nutty. Actually having an end node as an African.
I mean, yeah, it's not even like a meme play or anything. Like people were complaining, oh, it's Songhai just inting Iberia and just like defending Tunis, but he came out with a lot. Like he has southern France, he has like Genoese Italy. He's got 160 income. He's doing very well. It doesn't seem like a meme play at all.
He's double France's income. I mean, France doesn't have an end node, obviously, but like France is still a ton of devs.
Yeah, I mean, France went for sort of an interesting build here. So they went the offensive humanist opener, which I mean is the back row damage, but it's kind of weird to go for the back row like artillery build as your opener, and then he's going to quantity. It's kind of a.
Let me see. Actually, it was.
You went espionage.
Let me look at the
offensive.
All the policies are like really just.
I mean, espionage humanist.
The only one
is
is admin
terrible.
one.
Like espionage humanist is pretty solid. It's fort defense and war exhaustion, and then you get the like advisor cost stacking. So I'm not against the like espionage humanist.
No, they pair well, but.
But I would go Pluto if I was gonna open that.
No, if you're gonna do humanist espionage, you just go aristocratic. It has way better synergy.
I want to see an
or even Pluto. Like so if you go Pluto, you have the con cost dev cost policy with humanist, right? And then you have the fire damage received policy from espionage, and so you're still stacking like quality. It's
and
just
you get land fire's finisher for Pluto.
The thing is, you're stacking up late game modifier as your first idea instead of getting like a big.
I mean, the first two ideas in Pluto are really good for really.
Right,
like,
and this is buffed France with the
and
morale and discipline
the discipline is right in the beginning with the morale. That's one idea.
And you're opening the national manpower modifier and traditions, and you get the tax modifier. Like, I feel like if you stack that with humanist is a great
You could just
pick.
hard in someone.
Yeah, humanist is a great pick for an opener.
Yeah, humanist is fun.
And
like
I mean,
first.
with Xristo, you get the land leader shock pip, so you're going to be rolling like 4 or 5 shock minimum.
Yeah, that's why I like Xristo. Xristo gives you land leader shock.
I mean, offensive does give you land leader shock too, and shock damage. So it's not like it's an entirely late game stacking. I don't know.
Also, Xristo has
It's just
tradition.
the policies are really late game. Like, why would you need arty cost at the beginning of the game?
Why not? I don't know. There's
Me have no arty.
I mean, you
me
get
stack arty
shock.
cost.
You get shock, movement speed, reinforce.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad group. It's a pretty solid group.
The land force is nice. Also, I mean, no, that's kind of just it.
Yeah.
Siege, shock, movement speed.
What was Songhai's build? Because Songhai was the primary adversary of France this session. So Songhai has quality Inno. So the standard quality Inno SPO Pluto build, like just the sort of standard infantry merc build.
You could sack it a lot easier than a lot of other things.
Songhai traditions are nutty. Infantry combat 10, nearly army trad +1.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
All the
No,
ideas are useful, except for like institution spread.
Yeah.
Wait. Dog devved his desert 20 times.
Did he?
Yes, it's wrong culture too.
Which one, Kambara?
God.
It's
yeah.
right above. It's right
Todd
above.
Mecca?
Right
Oh
above
my
Gao.
God.
Right above Gao. No, it's right above Gao.
Dog deving, lol.
Dog hard inting?
Look, it's called yeah, Tadameka, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I was gonna say, if it's in this capital trade node, it's a tier 3 trade center, I could see it, but it's
Yeah.
not even that.
That's what, because it could be inland center. It's a really good state in
But it's
Niger.
Western Sahara.
What do you mean? Oh, the.
Todd Mecca.
Yeah, it's in Western Sahara, not Niger.
It's the only province in that state that's dev.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. If it weren't there, then it'd be fine.
yeah,
but-
definitely.
Honestly, there should be a way to get rid of arid later on, maybe, or at least a dev.
For sure. But speaking of deving, that's a pretty nice transition. I wanted to move into the second segment of this podcast because I don't want this one to run super long since we're just covering the Sunday game. So the nation we're going to be talking about today for our first inaugural nation review is Qing. So for Qing, I wanted to have a little more structure to this podcast segment. Starting with a few questions that the player himself had about like just nation management in general. So Xristo submitted this country for nation review, and he had a couple questions like when to dev tax or production out of province, and what states should be manpower dev, because deving is sort of like the fundamental aspect of nation building. So if you guys wanted to talk a little bit about like when to dev tax, when to dev production, and what kind of state would you select for a manpower state? I know, Seb, you like to talk about tax dev a lot, so.
Dude, tax dev, you dev it all the time.
Right
No,
now,
it's-
yes, he had Yihi. It's right next to Jaren. That was a good province to dev.
Yeah, like, manpower dev, you just look for a state as an inland trade center, and you just try to find one that has, like, good terrain. Like, Jaren,
Yeah.
the region of South Jilin is a very good state for that. You have like two grassland, a steppe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The mountains
Yihi's
less fun, but yes.
so Yihi's low dev. It's a good trade good as well, and it's grassland, so it's like the perfect state, and it's also prosperous.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the only issue is the province currently has the clergy, so you would have
Yeah, you just have to take that before, so they don't get really upset.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Starts deving.
That's one introduction to deving. So when you're deving a state, you always want to set it up properly before you start deving it. So the big things are, you want, for a manpower province, for example, you would want to revoke this one, Yihi, so it's not clergy, and then you would want to give it to the nobility, because the nobility give you local manpower modifier 20%, and it ignores autonomy for manpower modifiers in force limit, which is what you're deving for. And then you're going to want to upgrade this to a level 3 inland trade center, so it gives the dev cost modifier and the manpower modifier. And then you use the edict, of course. And then you just go to town on it. Make sure you have prosperity, make sure you stack your dev modifiers.
Burgers.
Yeah.
No issue.
Burgers,
And
loyal.
also, he has an upcoming policy. Once he finishes quality, he'll get more dev cost.
Yeah.
That's right. So probably you would want to not dev manpower or select a state for manpower deving until you finish your quality ideas, because you're going to get that 7.5% dev cost It's going to save you a lot of points.
If he wants to wait anymore, he could also wait into university's next tech. But that's still a while away.
Right, that's probably 15 years down the road before he's going to be able to start deving with universities, because he has to unlock the tech, he has to build them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would start deving before that.
You would, but not hard.
So the two states that I see for deving that are pretty good are the one we mentioned, the South Jilin state, because you already have one that's already pretty manpower devved, and then you have a province or a state, Shandong, which is
it's all farmland.
It's all farmlands.
Yeah.
So one of the issues is there's a lot of tax dev in this state, and it's already kind of devved up. So maybe this isn't the best state to do now.
The problem is it's also all wrong culture.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention the culture thing.
Right.
Honestly, I think the best state to dev right now for it is the Kinai in Kyoto. If you make that a tier 3 trade center, even if it's coastal, it's a really good state.
Yeah,
Yeah, Kyoto's good province. Oh, he made it his capital.
Oh wait, what? That's so
He made
fucking
Kyoto.
cool.
Before you used to be able to convert your reform into a daimyo or something, or the shogun.
Yeah, well, we removed a lot of the formables for players, and so you can't form Japan, you can't tag into a daimyo, you can't do any of that. But in terms of selecting like which provinces to dev tax or manpower, I guess we can talk a little bit about that, because that was one of like the more specific questions that Xristo had. I always selected based on just trade good. Yeah. So if we look at the trade good map mode, there's a lot of grain provinces and livestock provinces. Those are the kind of provinces you want to dev tax on, because they don't have the highest goods price. Cows do like get up there in price like late game. I think they go up to 3.5.
Yeah, they're okay, but they're not like paper.
Also,
so...
right.
I don't want to talk over you, but like, so you mentioned Shandong being a good state, and also Japan.
Yeah.
Not only because it's good terrain, but the buildings in the mud, the dry docks, and docks in general just give you more manpower. So if you're able to dev manpower,
right, yeah, that's true. So if you can do the most optimal state is a state that's coastal but has an inland center of trade, something like Tuscany.
Tuscany, yeah.
Or there's a couple others.
Toledo.
Yeah, or the Egyptian one, the Egyptian capital state, the Cairo state. That's also good because you have one province you can build a dry dock on. That's also a farmlands. But yeah, so if you go to a dry dock, you get manpower modifiers up to 50% local manpower modifier, which is insane for any coastal province. So since Shandong is already devved up, it's going to be a little expensive to manpower dev it now, but if it wasn't devved up already, that would be a good state to work on. So right now I think the best state to dev is South Jilin or Kinai state, which is now I guess your capital state. But going back to like selecting which ones to dev tax or production, pretty much anything that has a low goods cost, so grain or livestock, you're going to want to tax dev that. And anything with like a high production value, so gems, cloth,
I don't know about gems, it falls off pretty hard.
Gems okay.
Gems are okay like early. If you're deving like a state early, gems are pretty solid.
Yeah.
But they do drop off.
At this stage in the game, it's about to fall off, is what I'm saying.
Chinaware is good because Chinaware goes up in price. Iron is good because it goes up in price once like steelworking stuff events start popping. Paper is fantastic. Paper is an awesome good to dev. So is tea.
Yeah, if you get control of tea, you get advisor costs.
Cotton is an interesting one because cotton isn't necessarily an expensive good, but it has the local dev cost modifier. So you want to dev those provinces, but you don't necessarily want to production dev them.
Too.
Yeah, cloth is a production dev province just because cloth goes up in price, but cotton doesn't really. And so you want to probably tax dev a cotton province. But it's also really good in general just to dev cotton provinces because you get that dev cost modifier. And then another specific question that our Xristo had was the optimal time to delete tax buildings. On a country like Qing, I really wouldn't delete tax buildings because you're so big that you're never gonna building cap. Like,
Yeah.
the only reason you would ever exploit tax dev or delete a tax building is if you're at building cap and you need to build manufactories.
Or force limit,
Or
Not
force
only
limit or
that,
whatever.
Not only that, but temples are actually pretty good and they're a lot cheaper than vanilla. So they're not even
like a base temple gives 40% local tax modifier. So if you have 12 base tax, right, that's 12 income a year of ducats. And then for a temple, that's plus 40%. So that's roughly another 5 ducats a year. And so it pays itself off in, what is that, 90 divided by 5, 18 years. And so after 18 years, you're making a profit on a temple. So there's no real reason to delete temples because it's pretty much everything at this point is profit for you.
Well, I'm looking at this country. There's a couple of provinces you could delete them, but it's not a rush. There's a couple of provinces in Japan that's really good trade goods like iron, Chinaware and such.
So which provinces are you looking at?
Shikuzun is full of buildings and doesn't have a manufacturer.
the coal mine below North Kyushu.
The 2 iron
Oh, yeah.
provinces
So
next to it.
well, I mean, if I'm looking at that province, the first thing I delete is the castle, right? Because if
No, I think it's
It's
useful.
straight, yeah.
It's a straight province. It's if he gets naval invaded there, he's gonna regret
Yeah, I
doing
mean,
that.
see the
Well,
thing
you only
is,
need it
I
on
would-
one.
I would just
but-
put it on Bungo, right? Because Bungo is also a straight province.
Yeah, but
it's a
Chuksen has
woods.
the it's grassland, so he has the possible building.
Hmm. Is there a he could just go to a level 3 trade port.
Anyways,
Yeah, but it affects
not a
both.
rush.
Then yeah, it's either or. It
It's
doesn't
not a
really matter, but-
rush
So
because
here's
he
a
has
here's
lot
a
of manufactories to build.
yeah, you have a lot of buildings to build. I wouldn't be deleting tax buildings in this position. But one thing that I like to do late game, once I have like a large income, like I'd say like 300 plus monthly income, is you can start juggling your world ports around. Because it only costs 10 prestige to demote it, and then you can use the world ports to get an extra building slot and build the buildings and then downgrade it, and the buildings don't disappear. So you can technically have an extra +1 building slot in every province that has a state with a trade port, and you basically just abuse the hard building cap by juggling these world ports around. So that's something you could consider doing in the southern or this northern Kyushu state, and the Sanyodo state, and all these other Japanese provinces with trade ports is something interesting to consider. Another thing I wanted to talk about was estate placement, because that's something that a lot of people like get lazy about. But we were talking a little bit about placing nobility on provinces that you're going to manpower dev. But what would you guys consider to be like the optimal placement for like merchant guilds and clergy?
Clergy is basically anything that's high tax but shit trade good.
So there's like a lot of provinces in Mongolia, for example, that are basically just all livestock. They don't have like a ton of tax, but like anything with like 3 or 4 tax and like a shit trade good that you're not manpower deving, probably just slap the clergy on there. It gives a nice what is it, 20% national tax modifier to the, or sorry. No, it gives local unrest, so it doesn't boost the
Yeah,
tax
so if you
income.
have shit, if it's like keeps rebelling and shit, you can just start it on.
Yeah, that's one thing I like to do in the early game. You conquer a province, you just give it to clergy so it doesn't
Right, but you probably want to cycle stuff out of the clergy's hands later because
Yeah,
you're going to be deving it up.
And they don't control it that much. They control a lot of shit land.
Right. I mean,
There's some Korean stuff, like those 2 Korean provinces that are grasslands with good trade goods. Those are probably the ones you'd want to remove.
Right. I mean, look at the merchant guild. You don't want the merchant guild or clergy for that matter controlling anything with a high manpower dev. So, for example, Girin is controlled by the merchant guild right now. So you're probably going to want to revoke that, because right now it's just giving you 25% less manpower because of the local autonomy. And
Also the Korean cap.
Yeah, what is that? Hanxiang, yeah. It's I mean, both of these provinces are like 17 and 19 manpower dev. So 25% manpower is like 2,000 manpower that you're just missing out on. I mean,
if you want to start deving up China too, you could just start exploiting tech.
Yeah, like, so that is something that you could consider for the Shandong state, is exploiting tax in it so that it reduces the cost to dev up the mill points. Because I mean, you wouldn't dev something like Jinan, which is already 40 dev, like that's you leave that province alone. But something like Yanzhou is at 7 base tax, so that's just inflating the cost of dev it. So if you want to save on mill points, you could exploit this tax, get 55 ducats free, and start spamming the dev on the mill there. But that's sort of just like a decision on if you want to actually commit to like optimizing your mill point usage or not. Because tax isn't bad. I mean, it's still money. You're making what?
Oh wait, this guy gets 3 free admin policies, so he's just able to run all his admin policy forever, no cost. Wait, that's actually nutty.
Wait, where's the third one? I'm not seeing the third one.
The one upcoming, the construction cost and dev cost, so you won't even have to like worry about cycling up.
Wait, where's the the third free one?
Yeah, administrative clergy and administrative training.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's Pog.
Yeah. So he's gonna be fine on like, he's not even gonna be wasting admin or whatever today.
Yeah, you can just leave it on.
Yeah. It's actually
you're just gonna have a base 27 dev cost reduction. So this is like a perfect build to just kind of like AFK on, especially since you have full Japan control and like a lot of Chinese farmland already.
You have like 22 construction costs as well.
Yeah, you're gonna be able to build up very fast. So if you do want to start deleting tax buildings once you've capped on buildings, that would be a good time to do that. But I don't see you capping on buildings anytime soon, even with this build. So that's pretty much what I have for the nation review segment. If you guys have anything else to discuss for this one.
Well, upgrade your navy. It's obsolete.
Oh yeah.
He could keep one mothballed, because he has a ton of sailors. But
I mean, actually have a lot of ships.
Yeah, he has a really.
He has
like,
a second.
He has a sizable navy.
Like, he needs a big navy, and having his ships obsolete.
I mean, he probably doesn't even need to pay for either of them. But if he's scared,
honestly,
he just have one.
At this point, with that kind of naval power, I'd just go maritime. Right?
Maritime does have good policies as well.
Maritime, I mean, you get the 7.5% infantry combat policy with quality, which is a really good one because it has the naval morale too. And naval morale is like the really important one.
You could stack it real hard.
You also get a dip policy for national sailor modifier and naval maintenance, which is really strong. And you get the global ship repair, which is just like, ooh, it's so good.
If he's gonna be using galleys, he should probably get the doctrine as well. So if he has his UA friend, if you could trust him, he could just sell his both stacks and just buy the doctrine for cheap.
Right, yeah, you could sell like those 60 ships right to UA, and then he sells them back.
You select the doctrine, and
then it would only cost like 90 ducats to click the button.
Yeah, because right now it would take 1k, which is pretty wasteful.
Yeah, that's kind of silly for 15% galley compatibility. One last thing to wrap up. The army comp is a little messy. So right now you have 35 cannons. That's actually a little more than you need, because the next time you're going to get combat with improvement is Tech 18, and that's only +2. So even if you wanted to account for that, you only need 32 cannons for full combat with. The extra 3 cannons are literally doing nothing for you except taking up money right now, and you're actually over force limit. So I would delete 3 cannons basically. And then for front rows, it doesn't really matter as long as you're engaging with a full front row. But certainly with the cannons, you don't need those extra 3 cannons. And that's just sort of a general tip for people. You don't need more than your full back row, because your cannons shouldn't be taking damage anyways. And if they are, you're probably doing something wrong.
I just noticed his generals.
Also, I would.
Yeah,
state-
it's a 6625.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. And a 6632.
Yeah, like
would-
he's
I
both
would-
six.
What the hell? What?
Another thing is I would start stating stuff even though it's not the best, like Outer Mongolia,
Yeah.
Shikoku, Pyongyang, like these are not
He
the
has
best states, but you get you're about to get the next tech and admin that's gonna give you 5 states, so
Right.
I mean, he
so-
can also just unstate. Like he has actually no 22 dev states, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, none of the states he has right now are bad.
Yeah. I forget who I was looking at.
So he's going to go up to 33 total states, right? So we could certainly state Outer Mongolia, Shikoku, and Pyongyang. And then if he wants to save a state for, like, Tohoku and, like, the other Japanese stuff that he's taking, like, he can save
wait,
1 or 2 states for that.
Inu mega dev'd, what the hell?
but a whole
Yeah, it
30.
devs the gold. It devs the coal mine all the time. I
Yeah.
don't know why. AI there and what's it called? In Philippines too sometimes.
Yeah, turn 8.
Yeah, Cebu, Hernate. Y'all just like them being their coal a little early.
Yeah, it's already 20 dev.
Yeah, that's what.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I have for this segment. If you guys have anything else to say
About anything else?
about anything for Sunday Game, wrapping up this episode of the podcast.
Wait, so what happened? So, did Russia and Sweden make a deal or about Finland?
I
Or did he
think
just attack?
Russia's
No,
dead.
Russia just-
Sweden's dead.
Yeah.
Sweden's dead.
Yeah,
So,
I know. he
Russia
died, but,
dropped
like-
Sweden like a hot potato when Denmark and Prussia went in, and
Oh yeah.
it was kind of just like Russia didn't defend Sweden and just kind of went in after the 5-year truce and took Finland and called it a day. I don't really think there was any sort of innovative diplo there. It was just kind of straightforward. Sweden got fucked.
I mean, I didn't see. I didn't know what happened. What does Prussia even do though? He wants to play for the Empire still, even though there's no more reforms. Like,
No, he wants to keep the empire, the elector bonus. That's all he wants to do.
I mean, he has
is that what he's going for?
decent troops. Yeah, he wants to maintain. So for those that don't know, in the mod with our HRE reforms, if you're under 500 dev in the Empire, and you're an elector, you get Marshal of the Empire, which is base manpower, manpower recovery speed, advisor cost, and 5% morale of armies, which is really impactful. The aggressive expansion impact means almost nothing, but
It's good early game.
it's good for like the first 5 years or 10 years of expansion, but it's mainly about the manpower base and the morale of armies, and so it looks like Prussia's staying under that dev limit so they can keep their militarization and keep that Marshal of the Empire bonus. I guess it's a trade-off between that fast expansion and the dev limit, but that would be a good example of when you would want to exploit tax. If you're trying to stay under that dev limit, you could exploit the tax, dev manpower, and allows you
Yeah,
to...
just swapping it over. Yeah, Lewis was doing that. But
Yeah, Lewis was doing that on Hess, I remember, until he decided, you know what, I don't really need to be under the dev limit. Yeah, he's well over 500.
Didn't-
But,
yeah.
I mean, it looks like Hess is roughly as strong as Prussia, even despite the big talk. I mean, Prussia has slightly more discipline, the same amount of troops. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a quantity Hess too, so it doesn't have the insane quality.
No, he's not using his infantry combat. Actually, no, he has more infantry combat than No, they have the same amount, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the same amount. Never mind.
And actually, Prussia still has their Marshal of the Empire bonus, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait, Hess lost to theirs? Oh, he's over 500. Yeah.
Yep.
So he should have more morale.
Only 5%, not a huge difference.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's all I have for this episode of the podcast. Since it's just the Sunday game, it was a little shorter one, but I appreciate you guys for coming on, and especially Abba for the late notice on that one. But with that, thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you guys next week for the 6th podcast, which will be a more comprehensive one that'll cover both the Wednesday and Sunday games. And we should be wrapping up actually the Wednesday game pretty soon. So look for those of you guys that are watching this podcast and aren't currently in one of the games, look for sign-ups soon. All right, thank you guys, and see you next time.